Okay, the 3.27 Legacy of Phrecia event is almost here, and I've been seeing a lot of people saying that they can't really plan anything because we don't know what changes there's going to be to the ascendancies. But I'm still interested, as I think many people are, in figuring out what some options are for Thursday. And I want to do a quick video here just talking about melee options that could work for this event. So I'm just going to go over here to the alternate ascendancies and go through them. So right here we have the Daughter of Ashabi, and this one I think is a viable option for a few different melee skills. I think you'd likely start off with these two nodes if you're going to build something on League Start, and really aiming to get to that 2% attack damage for the evasion. And there's always the completely other route where you go for the random shrine buffs first. Maybe that would fit in with some builds, but I tend to think that this Oath of the Magi is really strong for the 30% movement speed. So that can really make early mapping and the campaign really smooth and fun. So, and then of course you have a free, basically gold rim here, better than gold rim. Lots of different ways you can take advantage of this first node at like level 30. So of course this is going to be more on the dexterity side of the tree over by the ranger, so you'll have access to the evasion nodes, but that does make it a little more complicated when you're trying to do something with, say, slams or maces or something like that, as I sometimes like to do. So spending a few more travel nodes to get over to the Marauder area if you go with this one. Of course, you can just stick in the dexterity side and come up with a nice build, maybe like, lightning strike or frost blades or something, or some ideas. Maybe wild strike could work. And then of course there's flicker strike, but flicker strike tends to be more in line with this ascendancy wild speaker, where you've got the aspect of the cat and this one. So I think a few people are already posting builds about flicker strike. I'm not really a flicker strike expert and don't really enjoy that playstyle usually, so I'll just leave that to them to talk about flicker strike. But this one alone here is interesting with the spectral wolf on critical strike. I think that could be fun to build around. And you might have some interplay between this and some of the bloodline ascendancies, like that ranger one. You get the spectral tiger. Some of these might work nicely with that. But I think where I'm most interested is still going to be the behemoth, like I did back in the original Legacy of Phrecia. I hope that they keep the spells, your spells are disabled on this node, because and buff the rest of the ascendancy perhaps, because I thought that was a really fun identity for the behemoth and a cool challenge to kind of have to work around. I think I would, if they keep that in there, I would maybe do something with the Gruthcole's pelt, because I really like the character size, and that's always really fun, just kind of thematically. But like everybody's saying, we don't know what kind of changes are to come for the behemoth, because this was probably on the list of ascendancies to get nerfed, or excuse me, buffed, because it was underplayed. But I really hope that they keep Steel Willed, because I thought that was a really fun node to build around, stacking armor, even though you can't run Grace or Determination as an aura at least. But I'm kind of curious to see, if they do something interesting with the rest of the nodes that could be fun. I've kind of stayed away from the Hate Forge like node up here so far, but um, and I guess that's largely because I'm I'm not like overly impressed by Vol ground slam damage right now, like compared with the ground slam of earth shaking numbers, and also like say Sunder or Earth Shatter. I just don't know if I can justify building around Vol ground slam, even though it's a fun Vol skill with a really short um, soul game prevention. Um, it just and it can be exerted as well, but um, I don't know. I just wish the numbers on that were a little bit higher, like into like the 700s or something, for like the damage effectiveness and stuff. Ancestral Commander, that's one of the big ones that's up for potentially nerfs, I guess. Um, even though I love to play Tectonic Slam of Cataclysm, um, I don't know if I'm really interested in that kind of build this time around. Um, I've not really had a lot of success with that on League start, so I don't know if I'm gonna go. I think I might stay away from Ancestral Commander personally, unless they make some interesting changes. Maybe I can see myself trying to play around one of these spirits, maybe just for fun. Um, I struggle to figure out what to do with the Ancestral Echo. If anybody has cracked the code for that and figured out what this is for, please let me know, because I'd love to make a build. I don't know if maybe Lightning Strike is good for this, um, or maybe Smite. I've played around with it, but it was always really clunky to like move and then attack, move. So it just didn't seem like it was as good of like damage as just standing in place and holding down your attack. So because I'm not as interested in Ancestral Commander, I'm also looking at the duelist ascendancies. First, I was looking at the Paladin. This was really appealing to me because I think there's a lot of ways you can go with this elemental damage that you get from Light of Divinity and then Elemental Valiance. This one, I don't know how to put that in terms of a more damage multiplier, but I feel like if I play something like one hand sword or something with this, with decent attack speed, that this could turn out to be a pretty big damage multiplier. And then I was thinking one way you could do this would be to use the utility flask increased effect, as well as one of these maybe defensive auras. And I was thinking about using the Perseverance as a cheap kind of League start option. Perseverance belt. So I don't really have a skill picked out for this yet. Smite could be, but I'm kind of, I've kind of overused Smite in the past and think I might have fun with something else. But Lightning Strike was also something I was thinking about for the life gain on hit on an Imperial Claw or something. I thought could be nice to have in these juiced maps that we might be doing. So I don't know, but I liked the idea of Perseverance because it's more, in my mind, more of a defensive option where you're stacking armor and evasion compared to like the Behemoth, where I think the defense is there, even though you're stacking armor. You missed the layer of the evasion in that one, so it just seems pretty strong defensively. And I would use like armor, evasion, rare items to get some spell suppression on my gear, which I think spell suppression is going to be a big deal for this event, considering how many modifiers these maps are going to have and everything. I think in the past I've gone without spell suppression. I would just go to like high 80s, maybe 90 max res on the elemental resistances, and that would be my elemental defensive layer. But I think this time spell suppress is a good move, and that would kind of be my end goal, is to get um, get my gear with maxed out spell suppress. Um, as an alternative to the paladin, though, the gambler I think is also an interesting choice. I think some of the first nodes that you would take are maybe this one here, where you end up with more damage. I think POB said it was like 36% more damage after you calculate all of this together, which is pretty strong, I guess. You know, when you put it next to, say, Aspect of Carnage on the Berserker, and no defensive downside on this. This one right here, I'm not quite sure how this would play out, because I obviously don't like this unlucky damage with hits, but maybe somebody else will test it. I don't know if I'm ready to test this out or have a plan for that. But the other nodes here that I think are really interesting, and I didn't really pay attention to these last year when this event came around. This one right here, at first I thought like the 50% chance is kind of nonsense. Like, how can you have your defenses planned around a 50% chance? But I they came up with this. I think maybe it could work in certain scenarios, and then you don't have to invest in, you're saving yourself from investing in max all LE res, and the 25% to all elemental resistance can be easily made up, I'm pretty sure, on most builds. But that would be really nice, actually. Like, and to count as being, I wonder if that would work with like a lore weave that locks in your elemental resistances at like 78 or something. Like, if this would count still, it could be interesting. And then this one, though, to have the inverted elemental resistances, that could be really big in this event, because when you have all these modifiers and juiced maps and things that people are going to be doing, you can expect that the monsters may have high elemental resistance. And even though it's only 50% of the time, that's half of your hits. If you're doing fast attack speed builds, then it kind of smooths it out really well, and you're just getting half your damage and at inverted elemental resistances on enemies. And that's also increased, I think, by the 15% chance on the mastery. I think it's 15% now, so 65% total chance to invert the elemental resistances. That's actually pretty awesome, and that alone might be reason to actually choose this ascendancy. I would probably stay away from like this one here, even though it's pretty good numbers, 50 and 50. I just think that you can get your elemental, ideally on the duelist here, you'd have spell suppress on all of your gear to max it out, and then use like, was it not Storm Shroud, Ancestral Vision or something like that, that converts your spell suppress to elemental ailment avoidance. So it just seems like a much more efficient way. But so those are those two. And then one that I think everybody's expecting to get hit with some type of changes, probably nerf, is the Scavenger. I didn't play with this last year, but there are definitely some cool nodes here. I think Blunderbore is really fun for melee builds. Physical melee builds can work with this. And then down here, I don't know about Doomfletch. I guess that could work, but I was more interested in like a slam build. I was curious how this one could work out for slams. Yeah, but this is obviously a good chunk of extra damage right here. So damage. I guess this is some damage here, I think, from these buffs. And then on the third one, the adrenaline on kill for 5 seconds is, I think, really strong. I don't know what else I would pick here. Maybe this if I'm doing like a chaos build, but I'm probably not. But those are the melee options. Let me just go in the POB real quick and look at some of these bloodlines. I didn't really think of many ways. Like I've always looked at this one, but I would only use this one if I'm doing pure physical damage, so I can take advantage of the hits ignore enemy physical damage reduction. That could save like 2 passive points in my mind on the tree. Normally I would take this one as well as the mastery to get 100% chance to ignore enemy phys dam reduction. So that's how I see this one being, maximized, getting maximum value out of it. Of course, this rage on hit is really great too. This one, I said earlier, I think this one has some, chances to be played. I like the one Ray Spectre. I'm kind of thinking, could I come up with something with the perfect Forest Tiger? I think it gives like haste or something like that, which, I think there's a lot of builds that could fit in a free haste aura on it, as well as like these other bonuses like cannot be stunned right there, 100% increased damage. This is my favorite one, I think, but maybe the other ones are really better. The crit strike chance, take no extra damage. That's really powerful. One of the other really interesting interactions, I think, is the Precursor's release. Going back to that Ranger ascendancy where you're not socketing gems inside some of your items to get the benefits. So like here, if you say you left your body armor empty with no sockets, you're getting elemental ailment immunity, and you're also getting like double defenses, I think it is, on the body. Double defenses if there's no socketed gems in that. So you're going to be able to double dip by going Daughter of Washabi with this one from the Crystal King. You have to kill the Crystal King to unlock this one. I don't really see these being as useful with the other ascendancy. I think this is the one that could be really awesome. Take no extra damage from critical strikes if you leave your gloves empty. And my thinking here is just use a 2-hand weapon, whether that's like a bow or a 2-hand axe or something, where you can just put your 6-link in there. The other option in my mind here is also if you can find a skill that uses Crest of Desire helmet, and then just one socket your skill gem into that, and then you get a ton of bonuses from having empty other gear. That could be really, really powerful. So I'm not really sure what skill this would work best with, but it's kind of just like an idea that could be built upon. I'm not really looking to mess with the Vol skills once again, because I don't know what the heck to do with the Vol Ground Slam. I'm not overly impressed with it. And the only one that I really do like to play is Vol Smite. I really like how that attack works. And also Vol Lightning Strike, I guess. And Vol Lightning Strike is an interesting one to look at. And I was thinking about actually league starting that, because... So yes, it's been nerfed, 50% less damage on projectiles. But let's see if I can pull it up here. So yeah, 50% less damage for your projectiles. But what you do get on this is extra projectiles with quality. So I was thinking, like, what if you put this Lightning Strike into a Crest of Desire with like 40 to 50 quality, that is a quick and easy way to get like +3, one projectile from the quality on the gem itself, and then 2 more projectiles from the Crest of Desire, and then you're getting double damage from Crest of Desire. And so, 6 projectiles probably more, with maybe cluster jewel. If you use like a claw, I think there's a node for that. And then on the ranger side of the tree, there's a +1 projectile over there as well. So in theory, I mean, you could be looking at 8 easy projectiles with Crest of Desire. Get one of the, I guess you can get Pierce on gloves, or on the tree could work too, I guess. And Lightning Strike builds have kind of for a long time been my favorite and some of my most powerful builds I've ever played melee wise, but pre-nerf. And I would love to play it again because I really like, how the projectiles pierce through these large packs, and they can be really great for clearing. But I don't really know how the 50%. I think it just takes longer, to kill, white monsters and magic monsters. It's going to take maybe twice as long with the projectiles, I guess, to clear them from a distance. I was thinking one way you can get around the loss of damage on this, projectiles deal 50% less damage for single target on like bosses, which is kind of, I think I might be doing like a map boss strategy at the start of the league, maybe. Point blank, I wonder if that will cancel out some of this effect, because the boss would be, if you're doing like the double hit thing up close to get the melee hit plus the projectile, I guess the projectile is what does the second hit. Correct me if that's not the case and you have like a source to confirm that. But by running point blank, your single target damage will be preserved mostly, but of course then you lose even more damage at a distance. So doing less damage to targets as the projectile travels farther. So that could be okay, because in theory the monsters that are most dangerous to you are the ones that are up close. So it's okay for some of the ones at a distance to be alive still. And in theory, you could be freezing them and stuff when they're at a distance with these projectiles that are piercing. But so that's kind of a front runner for me, maybe, is like a Lightning Strike Paladin or something that will have like Hatred aura from this elemental relic to get the cold damage I need to freeze monsters far away. And so this seems like right now one of my safest starters, and I don't think Paladin is probably one of the highest, priorities to nerf or buff in the balance pass that they're doing. So this is kind of like my go-to plan if I don't think of anything maybe before the start of the event. But that could all change very quickly depending on how Behemoth is kind of redone. If they do anything really, interesting with Behemoth, I might take the risk and just go all in on the Behemoth, just because I do prefer the Marauder side of the tree and the playstyle and kind of like the fantasy theme behind Marauder more than Duelist. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now, and I'm waiting just like everybody is for the patch notes to come out to do some more planning. But I hope that this maybe was interesting and got people thinking about some melee builds that they might want to play. And I will look to post some more videos about final plans as we get closer to Thursday. So thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you again.